Let me ask you a question that most people are too afraid to answer. Has something in your life changed recently, and you're still waiting for it to go back to normal? Your energy levels are different, and a part of you is thinking, this isn't how it's supposed to be. In 1988, Dr. Spencer Johnson wrote a deceptively simple book called Who Moved My Cheese? It's a parable about four characters, two mice, Sniff and Scurry, and two little people, Hem and Haw, living in a maze, searching for their daily supply of cheese. One day, their main cheese supply disappears, and each character reacts completely differently. That's it, simple story, but beneath its simplicity lies a profound truth that resonates with anyone facing change. Change is constant, comfort is temporary, and most people freeze when their certainty disappears. This story helps us decode our own patterns. The cheese isn't just cheese. It's a metaphor for anything you value and depend on. It could be your job, financial security, a relationship, health, identity, or even your daily routine. It's the stable ground you stand on. When that cheese is taken away, what hurts most isn't just the physical loss, it's the identity shift. Because if I'm not the successful one, if I'm not the provider, if I'm not the strong one, if I'm not the secure one, then who am I? This question activates deep-seated fear. It triggers an existential crisis for many. Your brain is wired for pattern recognition and thrives on predictability. That's why when a familiar pattern no longer exists, when the cheese moves, your nervous system reacts like there's a direct threat to your survival. Your thinking narrows to a fight-flight-freeze response, and you begin obsessing over what no longer applies. Eventually, staying there becomes a choice. When the cheese moves, people generally fall into one of four patterns. As we go through them, honestly ask yourself, which one sounds like me right now? First, we have Sniff, the early sensor. These people notice change before they become crises. They sense tension building in a relationship, markets shifting, energy dropping in a project, or their own motivation fading. They're not just looking for cheese, they're smelling for it, constantly monitoring its freshness. They move before problem hits. They aren't lucky. They're profoundly aware, and they understand that denial is a debt you eventually pay with interest. Then there's Scurry, the fast mover. Scurry doesn't waste time analyzing why the cheese moved or complaining about it. Scurry just acts. They quit the stagnant job. They pivot the business idea. They jump into something new, sometimes too fast, but they move. The upside, incredible momentum, and often finding new cheese quickly. The downside, sometimes a lack of reflection leads them down the wrong path, but even then, they learn faster because they're doing. Now for the most common pattern, Hem, the resistor. Hem freezes. He replays the past, obsessed with, who moved my cheese? He blames external forces, internal forces, anything but his own inaction. He waits, hoping desperately for things to go back to normal. But here's the brutal truth. Nothing is going back. The past is gone. Hem's biggest struggle isn't the change itself, but his inability to let go of the idea of how things should be. He prefers the familiar pain of the empty station over the unfamiliar growth of the maze. For him, familiar pain feels safer than unknown potential. This is often where people recognize themselves most deeply. This is a deep human preference for certainty, even if that certainty means being miserable. Our brains choose what's known over what's new, even if known means unhappiness. The comfort zone can become a trap zone. Finally, we meet Haw, the learner. Haw started alongside Hem, paralyzed by fear. But eventually, a glimmer of logic, or perhaps just a deeper sense of self-preservation, sparked within him. He's still afraid, so don't mistake him for fearless. But he moves anyway. His small, consistent actions start to rewire his brain. Because action updates the brain faster than thinking does. Haw understands that the only way out of the mental prison is through physical movement. People don't actually resist change. Change is inevitable. What they resist is losing. Whether that might be status, control, a comfortable identity, certainty, or the self-worth they tied to that specific cheese. Sometimes this resistance comes from past trauma, where change led to pain. Most times it's the fear of humiliation if they try something new and fail. But often it's the sunk cost fallacy, the belief that because you've invested so much time or effort into the old cheese station, you must stay, even if it's barren. Leaving feels like admitting defeat, like all that effort was wasted. It feels like a death to the ego. Haw's journey is defined by the insights he scribbles on the maze walls. The first one, a powerful self-talk strategy. Is this danger or just discomfort? This question isn't about discerning between caution and paralysis. That's because caution keeps you safe, and paralysis keeps you stuck. Most of us think we're being logical by staying put, but we're actually just terrified of the unknown, the nothingness of the maze. Fear is a room with no windows. Action is the door. Your brain, in its protective mode, will invent every possible negative scenario to keep you safe at the empty station. But those scenarios are often just phantom pains. The only way to test reality is to move into it. Haw quickly realizes the wisdom of sniff, his second lesson. Smell the cheese often so you know when it is getting old. This is about constant, honest self-assessment and pattern recognition. In relationships, in your career, in your finances, the cheese rarely disappears overnight. There are subtle shifts, faint signals, less engagement, market changes, a creeping sense of apathy. If you stop smelling your cheese, the inevitable move feels like a sudden, catastrophic event, rather than a predictable transition. The tragedy isn't that the cheese moved. The tragedy is that you stopped paying attention to the signs it was about to. Being proactive means you have agency, not just reaction. This is the hard truth of opportunity cost. Haw realizes his hands are full of resentment, old habits, illusion of control, and shoulds of the past. You cannot physically grab new opportunities if you're still clutching the decaying remnants of the old. The wasted time or effort you invested in the old cheese isn't truly wasted, it's experience. But clinging to it now wastes your future. You have to be willing to look foolish, to admit you were wrong, to drop the familiar, to open your hands to the possibility of something new. And finally, the ultimate payoff, a counterintuitive truth. Haw discovers, quite by accident, that the act of moving itself makes him feel good, not after he finds new cheese, but during the journey. This is the runner's high of change. Movement releases dopamine, lowers cortisol, and literally rewires your brain to associate action with positive feelings, even before the reward is found. Happiness isn't a destination, it's the realization that you are no longer a prisoner of the station. The feeling of agency, the simple act of taking control, even when the outcome is uncertain, is profoundly liberating. You rebuild confidence not through thinking, but through doing. This is the pivotal shift from victim to voyager. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" a question that keeps you stuck in blame and resentment. Ask, "What is this change trying to grow in me?" Is it demanding you cultivate adaptability, humility, courage, new skills, detachment from outcomes, resilience? The maze will change again. Your goal is not permanent cheese, because that doesn't exist. Your goal is permanent adaptability. When you become truly adaptable, the maze stops being a scary, unpredictable prison. It transforms into a dynamic training ground, a field of endless opportunities. You begin to expect change and even welcome it because you know your skills now lie in navigating, not just settling. So let me ask you directly, with the Haw perspective in mind. Where are you still standing still? What old cheese are you still clinging to? What are you hoping will magically return, even though all evidence points to it being gone forever? You don't need a grand plan. You don't need to see the entire path. You just need one small move, just one tiny, imperfect step. Send the email you've been dreading. Update the resume you've ignored. Have the conversation you've been putting off. Start the workout routine you keep postponing. Research the new skill you need. Apply for the opportunity, even if you feel underqualified. Small movement breaks paralysis. It's a spark that can ignite the entire journey. The cheese will move again. That is the only guarantee in life. This means your job isn't to find permanent cheese, but to become a master of the maze. The only real question isn't if change will happen, but how you will respond. Will you move with it, or will you allow yourself to be buried under the rubble of what used to be? The choice is always yours. If this resonated with you, I want you to comment below, "I'm moving," and tell me, which of the 4 reactions are you right now? Sniff, scurry, hem, or haw? If you want more like this, subscribe and turn on the notification so you don't miss our next video. Until then, keep moving.